If you've ever driven on a highway in the United States, you've probably noticed something almost strange. The car just glides. No bumps, no cracks, no sudden vibrations that make you instinctively slow down. The road feels smooth, predictable, almost like it was designed to disappear beneath you. Now here's where things get interesting. If you've ever driven in parts of Latin America, the experience can feel very different. Suddenly, the road demands your attention. You're watching for potholes, uneven surfaces, unexpected patches. It's not just driving anymore, it's reacting. And that contrast raises a question that most people don't stop to think about. Why? Why are roads in the US so consistently smooth, while in many parts of Latin America they can feel less reliable? Is it just money, or is there something deeper behind it? Because here's the thing. The answer is not as simple as the US is richer. There are technical decisions, historical events, geographic realities, and policy choices that all play a role in shaping how roads are built and maintained. And once you understand those factors, you start seeing roads differently, not just as something you drive on, but as the result of decades of decisions, priorities, and systems working behind the scenes. To really understand why roads in the United States are so well developed, you have to go back to 1956. Because the system you're driving on today wasn't originally designed for comfort. It was designed for war. That year, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act, launching what would become the Interstate Highway System. This wasn't a small infrastructure upgrade. It was one of the largest construction projects in modern history. The goal was simple but massive: connect the entire country through a network of high-speed highways. Today, that system spans over 75,000 kilometers. It connects cities, states, and regions into a single, continuous network. But here's the key detail. This wasn't about making road trips easier. It wasn't about tourism. It was about national security. Eisenhower had seen firsthand during World War II how Germany used its highway system to move troops, equipment, and supplies quickly across long distances. He also saw the challenges of operating in places without that kind of infrastructure. So when he became president, he had a very clear idea. The United States needed a system that could move resources across the country fast if it ever faced a major conflict. And that mindset changed everything. Because when infrastructure is tied to national defense, it's not treated as optional, it's treated as essential. Standards are higher, durability matters more, failure is not acceptable. And that philosophy shaped how roads were built from the very beginning.
Now let's talk about something most drivers never think about. What's under the road? Because what you see on the surface is only a small part of the story. In the United States, roads, especially highways, are built in layers. Before any concrete or asphalt is placed, engineers create a structural base designed to handle massive loads over long periods of time. This base can include multiple layers of compacted materials like gravel, crushed stone, and fine aggregates. Together, these layers can reach 30 to 60 centimeters in thickness. Why does this matter? Because this foundation absorbs and distributes the weight of vehicles, especially heavy trucks, that pass over the same road thousands of times every day. Without a strong base, even the best surface material will fail. On top of that base, the U.S. often uses concrete for major highways. Concrete is more rigid and durable than asphalt. It can last decades, sometimes 25 to 40 years, without major reconstruction. Now compare that to many parts of Latin America. In some regions, roads are built more quickly, often using asphalt, which is cheaper and faster to install. But asphalt has limitations. It's more flexible, which means it deforms under pressure and heat over time. So when you feel those bumps or cracks while driving, you're not just feeling the surface, you're feeling the structure beneath it. Now, here's a factor that most people underestimate: geography. The United States has vast regions of relatively flat land, especially in the central part of the country. These areas make road construction more straightforward. You prepare the ground, build your layers, and extend the highway across long distances with fewer obstacles. But in many parts of Latin America, the situation is completely different. Mountains dominate the landscape. The Andes stretch across multiple countries. Tropical forests, rivers, unstable soils, and steep terrain create constant challenges. Building a road in these conditions is not just construction, it's a complex engineering project. Every kilometer can require tunnels, bridges, and large-scale earthwork. Each of these adds cost, time, and complexity. So when you compare road networks, you're not just comparing decisions, you're comparing environments. And in many cases, the environment itself is the biggest obstacle. Now let's address the obvious factor: money. The United States has the largest economy in the world. That translates into higher tax revenue and greater capacity for infrastructure investment. The federal government alone allocates massive budgets for roads, maintenance, and upgrades. But here's the important part. Money is only part of the equation. In Latin America, the issue is often not just how much money is invested, but how effectively it is used. Public infrastructure projects can face challenges like inefficiencies, delays, or inconsistent quality, and that affects the final result. So the difference is not only financial, it's also systemic. Now we get to what might be the most important factor of all: maintenance. In the United States, roads are maintained proactively. Small problems are identified early and fixed before they become serious. This keeps roads in good condition over long periods. In many parts of Latin America, maintenance tends to be more reactive. Repairs are made after damage becomes visible, and by then the cost and impact are much greater. That difference in approach changes everything. Climate also plays a major role. Heavy rainfall, humidity, and temperature variations accelerate road deterioration in many Latin American regions. Water infiltration weakens the structure. Heat expands materials. Cycles of wet and dry create stress. All of this reduces the lifespan of roads. Now, let's talk about something you don't see, but you definitely feel: weight. Because roads aren't just used by cars, they're used by trucks, heavy trucks, the kind that carry goods, materials, and everything that keeps economies moving. In the United States, trucking is highly regulated. There are strict limits on how much weight a truck can carry. Axle loads are controlled. Inspections happen. Enforcement is consistent. Why does that matter? Because roads are designed based on expected loads. If engineers know how much weight will pass over a road, they can design the structure to handle it over time. Now, imagine what happens if those limits are exceeded. In many parts of Latin America, enforcement of weight limits can be less consistent. Trucks may carry heavier loads than what the road was originally designed for, and every time that happens, the road pays the price. Because when a truck that's too heavy drives over a road repeatedly, it doesn't just wear it down gradually, it accelerates the damage. Small deformations become larger, cracks appear sooner, the base structure starts to fail, and suddenly, what should have lasted years starts breaking down much faster. So the difference isn't just how roads are built, it's how they're used, and more importantly, how controlled that usage is. Here's something you've probably experienced without even thinking about it. When you drive across different states in the U.S., roads feel consistent. Lane widths are the same. Signs look the same. Markings are predictable. Everything follows a pattern. That's not random, that's standardization. In the United States, there are strict engineering standards for highways. Federal and state agencies define everything, from lane width to curve design, from signage placement to drainage systems. And these standards are applied consistently across the entire network. That creates something very powerful: predictability. When you're driving, your brain doesn't have to constantly adapt to new conditions. You know what to expect. Now, compare that to many parts of Latin America. Standards exist, but their application can vary. Different regions may follow slightly different practices. Construction quality can depend on local conditions, budgets, or oversight. And that creates variation, sometimes subtle, sometimes very noticeable. So when you feel that difference while driving, It's not just physical, it's systemic. Let's go a step further. Because how roads are built also matters. In the United States, large construction projects often use highly advanced machinery. We're talking about equipment that can measure compaction in real time, ensure precise layer thickness, control material distribution automatically. This level of precision reduces errors, it ensures consistency, and it improves long-term performance. Now, does that technology exist in Latin America? Yes, but it's not always used at the same scale or in every project. In some cases, construction methods may rely more on manual processes or less advanced equipment, especially in smaller or less funded projects. And that introduces variability, because the more manual the process, the more room there is for differences in quality. So again, the gap isn't just about knowledge, it's about implementation. Now here's something that's often overlooked. Even within Latin America, not all roads are the same. Some highways are excellent, modern, well-maintained, comparable to anything you'd find in the US, but others, not so much. And that's where the real issue appears: coverage. In the United States, the highway system is extensive and relatively uniform. In Latin America, quality can vary depending on location. Urban corridors and major economic routes tend to receive more investment. Rural areas, less, and that creates inequality. Because roads are not just infrastructure, they're access to markets, to healthcare, to education, to opportunity. So when a road is in poor condition, the impact goes beyond inconvenience. It affects lives. So let's bring everything together. Why are roads in the United States smoother, more consistent, and longer lasting? It's not just one factor, it's many. A system designed with long-term strategy, a strong foundation, literally and structurally, geography that makes construction easier, higher and more consistent investment, preventative maintenance, controlled usage, standardization, technology, and climate conditions that are less aggressive in many regions. Now compare that to Latin America: more challenging terrain, more demanding climates, different economic constraints, variation in systems and implementation, and a constant balance between building, maintaining, and adapting. This is not a story of one being better than the other. It's a story of different realities, different pressures, different decisions. And once you understand that, you stop asking, why don't they just build better roads? And you start asking a better question: what would it take to make them last?